What's up, everybody? Welcome inside the MRN studios for another edition of NASCAR Coast to Coast, brought to you by our friends at Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. Whelen Engineering, it's NASCAR Coast to Coast, where we dive into all things NASCAR regional. As always, yours truly, Chris Wilner, MRN pit reporter, and MRN announcer Kyle Rickey out in Connecticut. K-Rick, I don't know where to begin. The NASCAR news cycle is just absolutely a-buzzing after Richmond. I was there with the MRN crew. We tried to dissect it all on the broadcast, still trying to wrap my head around it. I can't imagine what it was like for you watching. Still waiting to see if anything's going to happen post-race, but what were your thoughts? Were you, okay, I guess we'll just start with this. Fair or foul, what Austin Dillon did?
Well, in the current time we live in this playoff format, it's fair. I mean, he did what he had to do to make the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs, and that is wreck not one, but two drivers in the final corner of the final lap, something I don't think we've ever seen before with two separate incidents. But I think if it was foul, it would have been called in the moment, as it is at many short tracks across the country, as it is in many other touring divisions across the country. And as we record this on early Wednesday morning, we still wait for a decision if there's going to be one. So, according to the rule book and according to precedent set over the last 10 seasons of this playoff format, it was fair.
And out of all the opinions I've heard since Sunday night, that's probably the one that I align with the most. It was fair in the moment, but now is there pressure on NASCAR post-race to say, okay, we've got to do something, otherwise we can go to Phoenix, race for a championship, and if you get clean-clocked, from 5-6 car lengths back, is that the way you want your champion to be crowned? I mean, do you think the pressure's on for the sport? Yes, it was fair in the moment, but is there a message that has to be sent for everybody moving forward?
Yeah, and I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet in this format. We're 10 years in. A lot of championship races in Phoenix, and I'm surprised our champion hasn't been determined by a purposeful act of taking another driver out, whether it be another championship 4 driver or a teammate to that championship 4 driver looking to get the win. NASCAR's going to clean some things up. I mean, if that happened at any short track up here in New England, it would take all of 10 seconds to declare that an illegal move and to award second place the win. And, here we are 3 days in now and still waiting for a determination as we film this episode of the show. So we'll see what they come up with. Yeah,
the saga continues, but you're right. I mean, heck, we saw it in the Cars Tour a couple weeks ago when Connor Hall got wrecked from the lead, and immediately Cars Tour officials made the call, disqualified the driver that did so, and we move on. But again, we'll see what happens. But we'll dive back into NASCAR regional action here on this week's episode, of course. Lots going on still as we really are already about halfway through the month of August, which just boggles my mind. But we're already getting ready to talk championships for some, including Bowman Gray. They're down to the final couple of weeks. We'll let you know who won this week. And Connor Zilisch had an opportunity to talk to him earlier in the week to discuss his pre-Richmond opportunity with the truck, but also his big announcement last week, getting the full-time Xfinity ride in the number 88 for Junior Motorsports starting in 2025. So we'll talk about that and much, much more in segment number 2. But Kyle, let's talk about the weekend. And as we recorded this show last week, it was all about the battle at Berlin, at Jeff Striegel's Berlin Raceway up in Martin, Michigan, where it was a star-studded field once again. Eric Jones, Carson Hocevar, and of course, lots of the local regulars. Evan Shotko's up there as well. But I tell you what, Bubba Pollard, Eric Jones, and Carson Hocevar for 250 green flag laps could not get away from each other. Probably one of the best races of the year, and it was Carson Hocevar that came out on top.
Here's what I don't like.
Yeah.
It was a great race, great field, good crowd. Good job, Jeff Striegel, for putting on another midweek event that was a success, and it's kind of been their staple now for a number of years. I don't like competition cautions so close to the finish. And I think the last one was like with 16 laps to go. And the restart, kind of like Richmond the other night, although that wasn't a competition caution, it changed the outcome of the race. So, Eric Jones was leading. Carson Hocevar got him on the restart, was able to pull away and take the win by several car lengths. But if not for that competition yellow, I know they like to throw cautions every so often, however many consecutive green flag laps it is. But I think 16 to go is a bit too close to the finish to put the yellow out at that point. Just let it end naturally. But congratulations, Carson Hocevar. Hopefully this gives him some positive momentum coming out of a big short track win, going into his full-time program in the Cup Series.
Yeah, and he's had a pretty big couple weeks away from the Cup Series. I mean, he picked up his first ever dirt win. He's been racing dirt for some time on the micro side. He's done midget races, but he picked up his first ever dirt feature win at Millbridge Speedway a couple weeks ago, and then, of course, winning at his home track where he was a former track champion at Berlin. Some drama post-race that we won't really get into, but, he was yelled at by officials for maybe celebrating a little bit too close to some of the officials and fans that were there. I even heard during qualifying maybe you've almost hit somebody. So, again, there's a lot still to unpack from that, but Carson Hocevar did come out with the win. And you're right, with the competition cautions, I get it. 250 laps, maybe there needs to be a halfway break, but limit the cautions, especially in the final half of the race. So we'll see what happens. But also big runs for Michael Atwell and Cole Raz, too, in the top 5. Evan Shotko, of course, who's won some of the big races out there as well, finished inside the top 10. Out west we go. ARCA West was back in action for Tri-City, the Napa Auto Care 150. Of course, the big story out of that weekend was Greg Biffle making an ARCA West appearance the first time since the 90s. We saw Greg Biffle in an ARCA West race, but it was Tyler Reif again getting the win, and really that championship now has fluctuated back and forth between Sean Hingorani and Tyler Reif, his second consecutive ARCA West win. What are your thoughts about maybe this championship battle? Because Sean, again, don't forget, wasn't with Venturini Motorsports, so the door is still open for Tyler Reif. You think he can hang on here the final few races of the year?
Yeah, 7 points. Reif over Hingorani, who, of course, won the championship last year and has raced for several different teams this year. It's pretty much between those two, 46 points. Back to Jack Wood, just 4 races to go, so not a lot of time for really anybody else to kind of crawl their way up into the championship battle. It's between those two. I don't know if the experience of winning the title last year for Sean might take effect here over this next 4-race stretch, or if, Tyler's just running a little bit better right now. Took the lead late, led 41 laps. There were only 2 leaders, those 2 drivers the other night. So, it's a series of 2 drivers right now, and they're at the front of the field consistently, and that's why they're running for the championship. You mentioned Greg Biffle, last car on the lead lap. Good to see him back, but never really worked his way toward the front. I think he got up to as high as 4th before a mid-race spin. Stayed on the lead lap, but kind of nursed it home in the latter half of the top 10.
Yeah, it's still good to see the Biff, though, back in action. That itch still needs scratching every once in a while. I'd be surprised if we don't see him back in the Truck Series before too long to try to give it another go. But for sure, really good to see Greg Biffle. And, of course, you mentioned Tyler Reif, the consistency as well. He hasn't finished outside the top 5 except for that 11th place finish at Phoenix to start the year. So model of consistency paying off. Sean Hingorani still in chase. And, of course, they still have a few races to go. Madera Speedway's coming up next, but it's going to be a little while, just over a month, September 28th, for the West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Fame 150. As we record this show on Wednesday, all these midweek races really throwing us off here. It's the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour at Thompson 150. I would be assuming, Kyle, if you're not busy tonight, are you going to head out that way, up in your neck of the woods?
You are assuming correct. It is a perfect day, about 70 degrees here this morning. Expected to get up to about 82 here later this afternoon. Not a cloud in the sky, low humidity. And the track's only 2 exits from where I sit. So, yes, I'll be heading up to the Big T for the annual midsummer 150 lapper for the modifieds. Yeah,
and it's a huge event, 154th race in the history of the tour out there at Thompson. I mean, it's just been iconic over a century long. Mike Stefanik holds the record for the most tour wins out there at Thompson, but we've got a loaded, always do, have a loaded entry list. Matt Hirschman in the field this week to run tonight. Obviously, your championship points leader, Ron Silk and Justin Bonsignor, who are still neck and neck when it comes down to the title chase. Anybody else surprise you on the entry list and maybe could surprise as another winner? We saw Austin Beers get a win a couple weeks ago, and obviously the Catalanos all 3 of them actually are in the field this weekend. So any surprise picks for you this week?
Yeah, he's not a surprise pick, but he's not a regular. Matt Hirschman, coming off a win here in the state of Connecticut just last Saturday night at the New London Waterford Speed Bowl in a big modified event. So he's got a little bit of momentum. Hasn't run well at Thompson. Last time he raced there, he was injured. I believe it was a shoulder injury, if memory serves me right, about 2 years ago. So his return to the track later on tonight. So we'll see how he does. But you mentioned all the big guns: Justin Bonsignor, Ron Silk, Austin Beers, a recent winner, third in points. Those are going to be the drivers to keep an eye on, along with Matt Hirschman. Good field, 27 cars on the entry list.
Yeah, I even saw one of your Stafford modified drivers, Steven Kopchik, is in the entry list as well.
Yeah. You got Woody Pitcat, Steven Kopchik, star-studded list. It should be a good race.
Always is. And again, 1 point separates Silk and 13-time Thompson winner Justin Bonsignor. Again, that race Wednesday night here as we record. So, of course, when you guys watch this, it'll be over. But it's going to be a great, great race out there at Thompson. Some other winners over the weekend, Kyle, on my list. How about Marc-Antoine Cameron in the NASCAR Canada Series, extending his championship points lead, 4th win of the season at the Grand Prix Trois Rivières. Am I saying that right? Trois?
I'd just say Three Rivers.
Well, I'm working on my French here. I'm trying to embody the full NASCAR Canada experience. But anyways, 4th win of the season, 29-point lead over Andrew Ranger. Bowman Gray Stadium, interesting story. Burt Myers and Lee Jeffrey split the Twin 50s. Again, they just have, I think, 2 weekends to go as far as their championship. But Tim Brown broke, I believe, and I'm going to have to check the notes here. Broke his hand in the first Twin 50. Awkward hit. A car was stuck in the racetrack, and caution comes out. He kind of got nowhere to go, barreled in there, and surprise, surprise, the competitor Tim Brown he says, got it checked out. Yep, I've got a carpal bone break near my thumb, but I'm going to test on Saturday and race Saturday night. Are we surprised?
Of course he is. No, we're not surprised. And it's easy to do. I saw it earlier this year at the Stafford Speedway with a modified driver at very slow speed, slowing down in turn 2. The left front tire caught the Nerf bar, the car in front of her, and the wheel snapped around on her, and she broke her thumb. So, it happens. And good to see that Tim will be back this week, only missing that second event. Big night this week at Bowman Gray. One of my favorite nights of the year. $2 ladies' night.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't get that memo. Hold on. I'm in Michigan this week, and otherwise I'm making my way up to the stadium.
$2 ladies' night. Going to be another full night of racing. It is the penultimate race of the year at Bowman Gray. So championship battles are tight right now in the modifieds, 24 points. Burt Myers over Brandon Ward. But obviously one slip by Burt with the car count that they're getting, and that point lead could evaporate pretty quick.
Need to plug in the music. It's ladies' night. Dun, dun, dun.
That's right.
Okay, yeah, whatever. Hickory Motor Speedway was in action too. A nice shout out to Taylor Reimer, of course, for those not familiar. She's a dirt ace running for Keith Kunz Motorsports, has been winning midget races, now transitioning with the Toyota TRD program into some late model action, picked up the limited late model win. She's actually scheduled to run on the dirt for the ARCA Menard Series coming up on Sunday at Springfield too, so joining some of the dirt ringers in that series as well. Bubba Pollard, of course, doing Bubba Pollard things, aside from finishing top 3 at Berlin last week. He's got his 5th win in the last 7 ASA Southern Super Series races. He got that done at Cordell. And Austin Terrace, we're getting close to the Oxford 250 weekend that's coming up at the end of the month. He won the final pre-qualifier, the 100 lapper up there, earning a provisional starting spot in the 250. So some big wins for some of those drivers. Anybody I miss up in your neck of the woods?
Just Mother Nature up here, raining us out at a lot of our racetracks.
Typical.
For multiple days in a row. We talked about Matt Hirschman winning the Monaco Modified Tri-Track Series event. 31 cars showed up to compete, so a great field there. But other than that, a lot of rainouts for another week in a row here in the Northeast.
Well, weather's looking good this weekend. We've got ARCA back at Michigan, and that means one of the drivers that we have talked about on this show and actually had on the show earlier this year when he made his Truck Series debut is going to take on to his first 1.5-mile race. That's Connor Zilisch. He's been on fire when it comes to the ARCA Menard Series and ARCA Menard Series East Championship. He leads the East title. He's got his last 3 starts in the ARCA Menard Series National Championship. He's got 3 wins, so he's on a lot of momentum, and of course, inked his deal with Junior Motorsports next year to go full-time Xfinity racing. He joins me next here on NASCAR Coast to Coast as we step aside for a break. This episode brought to you by Whelen Engineering. Stick around.
Whelen Engineering, a global leader in the emergency warning industry, designs and manufactures reliable and powerful warning lights, white illumination lighting, sirens, controllers, and warning systems for the automotive, aviation, and mass notification industries worldwide. Whelen products are designed, sourced, and manufactured in America and tested on site to meet the toughest industry standards. Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. We never left, and we're here to stay.
Well, the man making news yet again is Connor Zilisch, who this time is inking a deal with Junior Motorsports full-time NASCAR Xfinity Series next year. Connor, it feels like yesterday we had you on Coast to Coast talking about the Rolex 24, Sebring 12-hour, and then you making your truck debut. A lot's happened since then, but how exciting is it to have this announcement done, out of the way, and kind of get ready to focus on that for next year?
Yeah, today's been a definitely a turning point kind of day in my career. Kind of taking things to the next level as we move into 2025 with Junior Motorsports and running full time in the 88 car. It means a lot to have that number on my race car full time with Dale Jr. as the car owner, and there's a lot of really good people behind me supporting me making all this happen. Junior Motorsports, everyone at Trackhouse, Chevrolet, everyone who's supported me to this point. My ARCA team, Pinnacle Racing Group, everything they've done for me, Silver Hair Racing in my past. There's so many people that have helped got me to this point, and it's really exciting to finally announce this. I've known it for a while, for over probably 6 months, that I was going to be going full-time Xfinity racing next year, but to finally have it out and kind of able to tell people and move on and get ready for my next steps, and this will definitely kind of speed things up as we head into the next few months getting ready for 2025.
Yeah, so obviously you said you've kind of known this for a while, and obviously for those that have followed your career, signing with Trackhouse, you're on a multi-year deal as a development, kind of with one day obviously going to be in the Cup Series. But how did specifically Junior Motorsports get in the fold? Obviously there's a relationship with Chevy, but were there any other teams that maybe were an option for a fit for you for Xfinity, or was it always going to be JRM?
Yeah, well, in the Chevy camp, you've got, Colleague and RCR as well, and some other Chevrolet affiliated teams. But, when you're thinking about all the guys who've kind of come through the Junior Motorsports building and gone to the Cup level, I feel like that's where most of the guys that are really successful in Cup have gone through. And obviously Justin Marks, Ty Norris, everyone at Trackhouse wanted me to have the best opportunity possible to succeed. And it means a lot to have that kind of support behind me where they're willing to put in the funding and the effort to get me in the best ride that I can be in. And I feel like Junior Motorsports is that place. So it's going to be exciting. I'm not going to have any excuses going into 2025. I've got a lot to learn. I've never raced on a mile and a half before, let alone made an oval start in NASCAR. So, looking forward to my first one this weekend in Richmond in the truck, but, looking forward to 2025. It's going to be an exciting year. A lot of learning ahead of me, but, a lot of excitement too. I'm really excited to get out there and prove to people what I can do. And, just thankful that I got this opportunity to race for Junior Motorsports, such a high caliber team.
And it's been such a quick ascension too, especially on the NASCAR side. I mean, I talked about it at the top of the show. Last time we talked to you, you're making your first truck start. I don't think you made a Cars Tour start back in March since then, and even all your ARCA success. So what have the last 5-6 months been like in terms of just learning how to race on an oval, whether it's Cars Tour or ARCA or things like that, and just kind of getting yourself acclimated to stock cars?
Yeah, it's been a big learning curve for sure, especially in the ARCA series, just with how people race. I'm so used to racing road courses where any sort of contact is penalized, and you get into the ARCA races and you're getting moved and you're moving people. And I try to take more of a road racing approach where you use a little bit more finesse and kind of pass with less aggression and more, brains and smarts. So it's definitely a different approach for most guys. But, I feel like I've also shifted into the NASCAR mindset as well and had to learn when to be aggressive and when to kind of take that passive approach. So it's been a learning curve for sure. ARCA, I started the year off. I wasn't as good as I wanted to be, but I feel like the past few races, we've won 3 in a row now in the ARCA Menards, National Series. So as the season's gone on, I feel like I've learned, and that's the most important thing for me, from January to now and now to December is going to be getting out there and getting better with every lap and every race and improving every weekend. And, I feel like if I can do that, I'll prepare myself pretty well for 2025 and have a good place to start from come Daytona.
Yeah, and you mentioned learning too. I mean, most drivers have a couple seasons, right? To like you kind of have your rookie season in ARCA, maybe another year to get going, then you have this, but you're just kind of like Super Mario jumping through these levels. So like how much, I guess maybe not stress or pressure is it to retain all this information quickly? Because now, like you said, later this year and then the next year, you're going to be on big tracks where you're going to have basically 4 years of experience whittled down into, a year and a half.
Yeah, it's extremely difficult. And that's one thing I think people sometimes forget is how young I am. And, people talk about how well the 88's been running this year. And, I feel like for me, it's going to be gaining experience and not really setting expectations for myself, but setting out goals, long-term goals. And as long as I'm getting better race by race, or at least heading in the right direction as the season goes on, that's what's most important. And there's definitely some pressure to perform, right? I have a lot of, people saying pretty incredible things about me beyond what I'd expect and beyond what I honestly would want. It's definitely stressful having this much pressure, but I can't let it get to me, right? I can't let it change the way I go about my own ways. And that's the most important thing is no matter what people say, I'm going to continue to show up and be the hardest worker. And, I'm still going to put the work in to be the best. And if I continue to do that, I don't see the results going away. So, for me, it's tough. It's tough kind of handling the stress and the pressure from the outside world. But at the same time, I'm not going to let it change the way I go about my processes and the things I do to prepare myself.
Yeah, just turned 18 not too long ago, which is just absolutely hard to believe. But, I think also maybe what helps too is your diversity. You see the Kyle Larsons and everybody running basically anything they can touch and get behind the wheel of just to stay fresh. For you, you've been doing that for a while now with all the sports car stuff. And of course, now being in NASCAR. So how big is that diversity in your portfolio of race car driving? Does that seem to help because you kind of be put in different big situations, whether it's a stock car or a sports car, and seem to excel at it?
Yeah, it's important for me in my choices for racing all these different series. Some drivers will say, I want to focus on one thing and put all my eggs in one basket. And I do think that's valuable. And I definitely think there's value to that. But at my age, where I'm at in my career, I feel like I have time to kind of diversify. This year, next year, obviously, I'm going to have my eggs all in one basket. But this year, I felt like it was best for me to kind of spread out my workload and try and learn as much as I can in different series. And I think that was really important for me in my development. And I think it's kind of paid off for me as well, getting so many different race car experience. And, I go race IMSA and I can't say the terms loose and tight. I have to change the way I talk. Everything is different. It dwindles down to the smallest things. And, that's one thing that I feel like has helped me grow is learning and working with so many different people is good for me because I'm now kind of able to jump in any situation and be comfortable pretty quickly. And, when you're racing so many different series and cars, and then you have to get in this series and you're racing full time and you got 33 races to figure it out, it's tough. And, I feel like that background of jumping into things quickly and having to adjust quickly is going to help me when it comes time to go racing next year.
And obviously, like you said, you're going to be your full eggs are going to be in the Xfinity basket next year. But does that still allow you to do some of those one-offs, maybe enduros for IMSA or things like that? Or is it going to be one of those deals that starting next year, you want to focus on kind of your day job?
Yeah, I still want to be able to get out when I can. Obviously, the weekends off are going to be nice and you're going to have to enjoy them because the NASCAR schedule is pretty brutal. But, I feel like at the beginning of the year, going out and running the 24 hours of Daytona is still on my, my bucket list. I don't want to say my bucket list because I've checked it off the bucket list.
True.
But still, a second Rolex is on the bucket list now, I guess. And, I think that would be really cool to get out there and do that. But throughout the season, it's going to be tough to fit in races. But if there's opportunities that, I think are going to be valuable to me and my growth, I'm for sure going to take them up. So, I still keep the same mindset of wanting to race in as many different vehicles as I can. And, guys like Kyle Larson who still go out and race high limit on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And, we'll do anything on their off weekends. That's the kind of guy I want to be. As important as the next year is going to be, though, it's going to be tough to really diversify my focus because I really want to focus on 2025 and being there for my 88 team and, being the best that I can be for my team. But I still want to be able to get out and, experience different things and have those different experiences to put under my belt.
As you finish 2024, obviously in the title hunt for the ARCA East Series, and obviously still plenty of races to go out and win, have you really leaned on anybody, maybe in the Cup Series or even within Trackhouse or JRM, just kind of as a mentor to help you prepare? Like, what do I do in this situation, or how do I handle, maybe even this decision to go Xfinity racing? Like, who's been somebody that you've leaned on kind of through your progression here?
Yeah, my number one guy that I've leaned on for the last 2 or 3 years would be Josh Wise at Chevrolet. He's been a big part of my development and, everything that I've done. I feel like he can help me with the things I'm doing on the track and the things I'm doing off the track as well. He's willing to give me advice on things you wouldn't expect him to give me advice on, like how should I deal with troubles with a car that I'm racing against in ARCA. I've had trouble with the 18 and, I kind of go to him to lean on with advice on how I should go about that. But driver wise, some guys that I lean on, Ross Chastain, Zane Smith, he's a good teammate as well. Noah Gragson, he's raced with Junior Motorsports before and was really successful in the Xfinity series. So he's a good friend of mine that I've already kind of been asking questions about what to expect and things that I should know going into the start of the season, and maybe some mistakes that he's made that maybe I can get out of the way and not have to really make those. I don't want to have to make those mistakes that he's made if he can tell me. So, those kinds of guys that have been through what I'm going to go through next year are the kinds of guys I want to talk to and hear from, just to kind of hear the things that they can say about the experience they had and what they learned and the mistakes they made and the mistakes they probably shouldn't have made.
And you kind of mentioned it there too, racing the 18 in ARCA, and I know that's going to come down to the wire as far as the ARCA East Championship. Where do you guys stand now, and do you foresee that that's going to be the guy you're going to have to beat come season finale? I believe we're at Bristol, to maybe go decide the championship. I mean, how excited are you to kind of have this mano-a-mano fight for the last couple of races?
Yeah, I'm really excited. I've had fun, and at IRP, William and I are, we've talked about it, and
Yeah.
he's a good kid, and we're gonna be racing against each other for a long time. He's got some Xfinity races later this year, and I wouldn't be shocked to see him running next year as well on, whether it's part-time schedule, full-time schedule. So I talked to him about it, and I was like, look, we're gonna be racing against each other for a long time to come, and I don't want to race with disrespect, and I always want to respect you and your team, and we talked about it, and I feel like at IRP we both had mutual respect for each other. And had a good clean race. So I expect that moving forward. And, I hope that's the same kind of mindset he has as we look into Milwaukee and Bristol. But, as the championship looks, I feel like for me, I just need to go out and run my race, not do anything silly and don't make silly mistakes at the end of the day. I've got a pretty good championship lead. So as long as I go out there and do my job, I think we'll be good.
And so with that aside, obviously this announcement this week going Xfinity racing next year, you haven't even taken to the racetrack an Xfinity car, but you will 4 times this year. So now that this announcement's out, how critical are those 4 races beginning at Watkins Glen for you to kind of get a jump start on not only yourself in the car, but working with the team and just kind of getting yourself familiarized with the way the Xfinity series is run?
It's going to be important. These 4 races are kind of the baseline of my growth and what I'm going to need to learn going into 2025. I've got 4 really diverse tracks that I'm going to go to starting at Watkins Glen, and I've got Kansas, Homestead, and Phoenix. So a lot of different places to learn at. I feel like I'm going to probably struggle a little bit at first at Kansas and Homestead, but hopefully by the end of those races, I'll be able to have figured it out and be in a good spot by stage 3. So that's kind of my goal as I head into the races. I don't really want to put expectations on myself to go out and qualify up front or run really well in stage 1. I just want to be there at the end of the race, run all the laps and check the box. And if I can do that at all 4 of those races, I feel like I'll be in a really good spot heading into 2025. And I don't want to rush myself. Don't want to put myself in bad spots and make mistakes that I don't need to. So I'm just going to take them with, one step at a time, 1 lap at a time. And hopefully by the end of those races, we'll be in a good spot and get some good finishes.
Well, Connor, we're super excited for you, man. Congratulations. All the best the rest of this year, and obviously chasing a championship and then kicking off your Xfinity career later here in a few weeks, and then obviously into next year. So really excited for you. I know, somebody that we've had on the show several times, and now you're the next graduate from NASCAR Regional to the National Series. So we're proud of you and best of luck.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Chris.
All right, well, that does it with Connor Zilisch. Coming back next on NASCAR Coast to Coast, plenty of news and notes, plus the schedule. That's all after this break. Stay with us. NASCAR Coast to Coast presented by Whelen Engineering.
Whelen Engineering, a global leader in the emergency warning industry, designs and manufactures reliable and powerful warning lights, white illumination lighting, sirens, controllers, and warning systems for the automotive, aviation, and mass notification industries worldwide. Whelen products are designed, sourced, and manufactured in America and tested on site to meet the toughest industry standards. Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. We never left, and we're here to stay.
Welcome back to NASCAR Coast to Coast, brought to you by Whelen Engineering. Great conversation there with Connor Zilisch. And I tell you what, Kyle, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes out and goes 4 for 4 with his ARCA starts at Michigan. But the biggest challenge, I think, for him this weekend is going to be the aero. We didn't really get a whole lot of that as far as most of the ARCA races he ran, maybe a little bit at Iowa. But what is the biggest challenge you think for Connor moving forward, aside from getting ready for his Xfinity starts, but especially this weekend at Michigan, running the big track where the draft is pretty much going to be pretty critical?
It is, but in ARCA, it's a smaller draft. You only have 6, 7, 8 cars maybe that'll probably be up at the front. So I guess taking baby steps into learning aero, pretty good opportunity for him to do that this weekend, 1 or 2 cars at a time as he tries to make his way to the front if he doesn't start at the front of the field, because that seems like it's been the case more times than not. But no doubt a star of the future. I've heard nothing but good things about him, especially the last couple of weeks. But since we first, talked about him on the scene about a year or so ago at Watkins Glen. So look forward to seeing him race this weekend.
Yeah, and he's got one of those qualities that, really separate some drivers that are up and coming from the ones that make it, and that's that adaptability. And you look at just the last time, and I think I referenced it in the interview, that the last time we talked to him, it was before all of this. It was a lot of unknowns. He took, 2 ARCA races, I think, to get a win. He took 2 Cars Tour races. I mean, he has adapted so quickly that he's going to have these 4 Xfinity races coming up later this year, beginning at Watkins Glen, to get him set for 2025. He'll hit the ground running, no doubt, in 2025 and be a threat to win, I think, almost every weekend. So really good stuff there with Connor. Appreciate him joining us. Now to some news and notes. We mentioned about Tim Brown and the broken hand. He's scheduled to run at Bowman Gray in the penultimate race of the season coming up on Saturday. How about Connor Hall? Speaking of short track racers going to the big time, making his Truck Series debut at Richmond. Got a chance to cover him for the most part of the night. He was in my section of Pit Road on the Motor Racing Network. It wasn't flashy, but he hung around just around the top 10 most of the night. Didn't make mistakes on pit road. Didn't make any real mistakes on the racetrack. Maybe early was a little conservative, but winds up with a top 10 finish. So what are your thoughts about Connor's debut? I know he called it the biggest moment of his career. I think he certainly checked the box and did a good job.
Well, his home track, right? Richmond Raceway in Virginia, has been going there for years as a spectator, finally gets to race on the big stage under the spotlight. And there were a lot of people there watching him. Started 21st to finish in the top 10, a successful night. And he said post-race, if I could do it again and take everything that I've learned in the last 250 laps, I could finish in the top 5. That's how confident he was post-race. So obviously a big night, a big confidence builder, and another one of these young drivers that I think has a bright future in our sport on a national level.
100%. Bill Mullis, the owner at Langley Speedway, was actually on the pit box for a little while cheering Connor on. So that was really cool to see. And you're right. I think I would be surprised if he doesn't get at least 1 or 2 more starts, kind of like what we saw Brendan Butterbean Queen do after Wilkesboro, inked another couple races. We'll see if there's availability in that 91 truck for McAnally Hilgelman. If not, certainly I think 2025 is a valuable option as well. Also some news coming out of the Snowball Derby weekend, which is, again, rapidly approaching as we sit here halfway through August. Coming up in December, the Snowflake 100, which is the Pro Late Model combo event that runs on Snowball Derby weekend. The Alan Turner Pro Late Models out there at Five Flags. A new updated purse. It's now $750 to start, And if you win, it's now $10,000 to win. Second place, $5,000 to win. So that's significantly increased from what the purse was years past, or at least the way it was divvied up. So if you're a pro late model racer, I would expect that field, which it always is, pretty huge. But certainly when you race for some extra cash, that doesn't hurt when it comes to the strength of the field. So really good to see the health of purses still being okay out there in late model country. All right, let's go to the calendar this weekend before we say goodbye to our folks here this week. NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour, we talked about just a little bit coming up tonight at Thompson with the Thompson 150. Again, all three Catalanos, Matt Hirschman in the field. Of course, the championship battle super tight with 1 point between Ron Silk and Justin Bonsignor. We'll talk about that next week. But how about ARCA? The Motor Racing Network will kick off a busy weekend at Michigan, in Brooklyn, Michigan, at Michigan International Speedway with the ARCA Menard Series, the Henry Ford Health 200. We talked a little bit just moments ago about the draft being key. This was the race last year, and I know I sound like a broken record, that Andres Perez almost won. He is still winless. Our ARCA regulars are still winless. Is today or this weekend the weekend for Andres Perez? He blew up after leading 43 laps last year. Could he get it done?
Sure he could, but Connor Zilisch is in the field.
Yeah, I know.
We'll see. Obviously, led a bunch of laps, knows the racetrack, knows the draft. We're waiting for him to finally break into victory lane. Obviously running well, top the championship standings for the ARCA Menard Series. So, this is a perfect place for him to get it done. Honestly, I think it'll probably be Bristol, but we'll see. That's in a couple of weeks' time still. So it's going to be a great race, great way to start the weekend with the ARCA Menard Series. They're always entertaining at that 2-mile oval. And, look for him to be strong, look for Connor Zilisch to be strong, and I'm sure there will be several others battling toward the front of the field.
Yeah, and
Frankie
on the entry list,
back in the field.
What's that?
Frankie Muniz back in the field.
Yeah, Frankie getting another opportunity back in ARCA. Of course, we've seen what he's been able to do, maybe getting some truck and Xfinity rides, but back with the ARCA series. Tanner Gray's going to be back in the 18 for Joe Gibbs Racing. Of course, he won at Charlotte earlier this year, back in May. So some stiff competition as well, because some of the one-off deals as well. And then, of course, it is a busy weekend because they've got a double header, 2 races in 3 days. They go from Michigan International Speedway on Friday in the big 2-mile oval till they go to the big 1-mile dirt oval at Springfield on Sunday for the Springfield ARCA 200 or 100, and that is riddled with some of the dirt racing prowess that we typically see when we go dirt racing on the ARCA Menard side of things, including your defending winner Brent Cruz is back in the field, and it would not shock me if Brent Cruz did what he did last year and just absolutely whoop up on the field. But dirt ace Taylor Reimer is in the field as well. How difficult is it, Kyle, for some of these teams, especially the smaller teams, to go from Michigan to Springfield in the span of 3 days?
Yeah, and with a lot of these teams with one car, maybe two, attrition was huge last year at the dirt race, which was, I think, last year 2 days after racing the road course at Watkins Glen.
Yes.
And there were some pretty big incidents at Watkins Glen last year where they had to put cars back together heading to Springfield. And then, a lot of these teams just aren't used to dirt racing. A lot of cars overheating, a lot of mechanical issues that you normally don't see on an asphalt oval or a road course. It was the case a year ago. So we'll see. I think there were only like 6 or 7 cars that finished last year. Brent Cruz dominated the event, as you mentioned, and I expect we'll see much of the same here this year. Hopefully attrition isn't as much of a factor, but we'll see when we leave Michigan on Friday.
Yeah, and William Sawalich is in the field for Sunday. He's not yet old enough to run on Friday at Michigan, so we'll see him on the dirt at Springfield. Finished top 5 in the ARCA dirt events last year, and of course he's trying to go for 3 in a row on the ARCA Menard Series as well, so it'll be interesting to watch again that race on Sunday. So Friday and Sunday for the ARCA Menard Series. Cars Tour rescheduled last Friday at Ace to this Friday at Ace Speedway, 8 p.m. on Flow Racing. We got pro late models and late model stocks in action as well. The Quapple brothers were dominant, both sweeping the late model stock and pro late models last year. The extra week off, some of the cool down after the Trayton Lapsevich disqualification a couple weeks ago now. I know that process is still going on the appeals, but I guess have to pick up the pieces and keep moving forward, and it's going to be another dogfight at the finish at Ace, with a really tight racetrack there in North Carolina.
Yeah, small, little, tight racetrack, going to provide some great racing for the Cars Tour. Obviously, they have a lot of momentum this year, heading now into the late summer months. Connor Hall, just a very small championship lead over Brendan Queen. I think it's just 12 points. Hopefully, Mother Nature cooperates, because obviously this event rained out from a week ago, and like you mentioned, gave time for everything to cool off from 2 weeks ago. So we'll see what happens this Friday night.
Yeah, and it's been a problem, Mother Nature down here. For a part of the country
Everywhere.
that gets stifling hot. We had no rain here in the Carolinas for what felt like a month at the beginning of the summer, and then in the last 3 weeks, when you mix Debbie in with just our typical kind of summer weather, we have had more rain in 3 weeks than I think we've had all year. So enough, Mother Nature. We've got your point. Let's finish out the year strong and no more rainouts, but we'll see what happens there with the Cars Tour at Ace. Any other race you got your eyes on? The only thing that really stuck out to me besides some of our weekly stuff, NASCAR Canada at Delaware coming up on Saturday. They are in the hot and heavy of their summer schedule. Again, the NASCAR Canada Series, different because they start so late, but then they kind of compact everything into a couple of months' time. But what else is on your schedule this week?
Yeah, they're down to it. Just a few races to go. And like you mentioned, all consecutively for the NASCAR Canada Series. Great field last weekend, 31 cars. Expect another good field here this weekend. My eyes are on a lot of the local stuff. Obviously, the NASCAR Modifieds tonight. We talked about that here at Thompson. Open 80 modified race, open modified race at the Stafford Speedway this coming Friday night. I don't want to jinx it, but the weather looks good. So we'll see what happens as these tracks now across the country, literally from coast to coast, get down toward the final month of their season. Hard to believe.
With your open modified 80, does that attract some of the guys that may run the tour race on Wednesday that are from the Northeast to maybe go try and run at Stafford? Do you expect kind of a higher car count because of that?
Yeah, depending on, if guys get tore up possibly tonight, and hopefully that's not the case, but we expect maybe 10 to 12 drivers that are in the field tonight to race on Friday night. We're in a tough stretch right now because there's going to be 3 modified tour type races in the state at all 3 racetracks in 7 nights.
Wow.
Waterford last Saturday with the Monaco Modified Tri-Track Series, Thompson tonight, Wednesday as we tape this, Stafford Friday night. So a whole lot of racing across the region and across this part of the state of Connecticut, just in general, with 3 tracks being so close together. So hopefully the car count's good. So I think approaching 24, 25 cars right now, so we'll take it.
Hey, either way, the fact that events are rolling like that, it's healthy for short track racing, that's for sure. Weekly racing this week at Jennertown, Riverhead, Berlin, South Boston, Florence. Of course, we mentioned Bowman Gray and their penultimate Ladies Night event coming up on Saturday, so if you're in the area, check that out. And, of course, Langley Speedway as well on the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts weekly national schedule. Driver of the week, Kyle, before we say goodbye.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Matt Hirschman. He wasn't even a factor the other night at the New London Waterford Speed Bowl until a late race caution. Kyle Bonsignor was the race leader, was pulling away by 3 seconds with 5 laps to go, and the yellow came out. Came out. Chose the wrong lane for the restart, something we saw elsewhere in Virginia this past weekend, apparently. And Matt was able to make it stick on the bottom and take the race win. So congratulations to Matt in getting the job done there. Also, another quick shout out. We've had her on the show before, McKenna Hassey, one of the most violent wrecks I've seen in a long time at the Knoxville Raceway Friday night. One of the nicest people you'll ever meet. And McKenna has done so much for the sport on and off of the racetrack. Wishing her a speedy recovery after a pretty big hit there in her sprint car at the Knoxville Nationals.
Yeah, 100%. She released a video on her social media channel over the weekend saying she was being discharged from the hospital, going to recover a little bit at home, but does plan on being back in the seat here before too long. So good to see that from McKenna after that crash. All right, well, MRN is back on the air this weekend, of course, as we continue the post-Olympic break run to the playoffs, and that begins this weekend at Michigan. We mentioned the ARCA Menard Series will kick things off for the Motor Racing Network crew with the Henry Health 4200, 6 p.m. airtime on Friday night. Saturday doubleheader, NASCAR Cup Series pole qualifying and practice at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. That'll lead you right into the NASCAR Xfinity Series after 3 weeks off. They're back in action at Michigan with the Cabo Wabo 250 at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And then, of course, Sunday NASCAR Live Race Day gets you set at 1:30 p.m. Eastern for the Firekeepers Casino 400 for the NASCAR Cup Series. All right, Kyle, it's going to be a fun weekend. Enjoy your trip to Thompson here tonight, and I'm sure you're going to be tuning in to us folks out in Michigan.
Absolutely. Going to be a quick trip, and look forward to a great weekend at Michigan. That track has come a long way here the last couple of years, providing great racing, and I look forward to the triple header.
Absolutely. Multiple lanes, multiple grooves. Going to be a good time out there in the Irish Hills. For our producer, Pat Jaggers and Kyle Rickey, my name is Chris Willer. Thanks for tuning in to NASCAR Coast to Coast this week, brought to you by Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. Whelen Engineering. We'll see you next time here on Coast to Coast.